This video is sponsored by Into the AM. The year is 2016 and Games Workshop out of the blue drops a new box with 2 new factions in it. Deathwatch Overkill, containing the Genestealer cult back from the dead and the Deathwatch Space Marines. I immediately buy 2 boxes and then I buy more copies of the models on eBay. I put together, built and painted a Genestealer cult army, and then I had quite a few Deathwatch miniatures, and so I decided to go ahead and put together a Deathwatch army. And I put together a Deathwatch army. I had Deathwatch veterans, all of the Deathwatch in Deathwatch Overkill. I actually got a copy of Deathwatch Terminators, which was just the normal Terminator kit with like 5 Deathwatch upgrade frames in it, so you had enough shoulder pads to outfit the full squad. I had a bunch of bikes. I had like 30 bikes. It was wild. Got it about quarter painted and then decided to sell it because I found out that I didn't have enough love in my heart for 2 different Space Marine armies. Also, Primaris was kind of coming out and I was getting into my Black Templars a little bit more, and so Deathwatch got sold. But I still love the Deathwatch. I do think they are the coolest Space Marines after the Black Templars, and I remember exactly how I used to paint my old Deathwatch. And I want to put together a little Deathwatch veteran for old time's sake. I grabbed an Intercessor sprue off the shelf and clipped out the bits for my Deathwatch boy. There was a Deathwatch Veterans box, but that was its own distinct unit. Deathwatch could also bring any Space Marine kit. A Deathwatch Intercessor would fit right at home. To get this guy started on his Deathwatch journey, I shaved off the chest Aquila using a sanding twig to get it nice and smooth. Depending on the loadout, this chest would be a great spot for extra ammo pouches, but I'm not sure what weapon I'm going with for this little fella yet. I glued them all together, sticking on his little shin guards, and I want to load him up with some pouches and pockets. I snipped off a few little baggies, and for his holster, I cut off an extra small bag. I stuck it onto some poster putty so I can actually hold it and sanded it down a little so I can glue it onto his holster. The bag that holds his gun also has a bag. I glued on some more pockets to his other side, and then I went back to the sprue and took this little doodad that has a dial and pressure gauge for some reason. This looks good and techy, like something a tactical Marine would wear. I took this bit and stuck it onto my Marine, gluing it onto his butt. And butt coverings are one of the many pieces of attractive apparel available from today's sponsor. Is your wardrobe not up to snuff? Could you use some cool new outfits? Well, today's sponsor, Into the AM, has got you covered. Literally, covered with their clothing. Into the AM is here to satisfy you with both comfort and style. They offer a huge selection of every kind of clothing you could need. Shirts, denim jeans, joggers, briefs, flannels, jackets, and their item I love the most, graphic t-shirts. T-shirts like the Infinity Explorer graphic tee. This one has a sweet melancholy feel to it. Bourbon Voyage pullover hoodie. This one's really nice and warm. Heart of the Wild graphic tee. My Smoky Mountain parents really love this one. And the Space Saga vintage tee. It's got that retro vibe. All their art is incredibly detailed and vibrant with great printing. They have an absolute ton of graphic tees for you to choose from, and more are coming out all the time. Right now, they're happily showing off their stretch fit jeans. These denim jeans are the perfect choice for the active person on the go who wants to look and feel good while going. Whatever you're into, from astronauts to Asian fusion to wilderness, there's always something new and cool to see and style yourself in. And there's always some kind of a sale going on with Into the AM. Right now, if you follow the link in the description below, you can get an additional 10% off your order from us. Head on over there and pick out your new style today. Now for some decisions. The Deathwatch get access to a lot of war gear that typical Space Marines don't, and I have a decent number of these bits in my collection from my Deathwatch days. A combi weapon is a classic piece of Deathwatch tech. I remember in 8th edition, you would get 1 shot of the special weapon. Then there is the Deathwatch pattern bolt gun that has 2 little Kit Kats sticking off the side for some reason. The Infernus Heavy Bolter, which is a combi heavy bolter and heavy flamethrower, which might be one of the most over-the-top Space Marine weapons ever. And of course, the Space Marine shotgun. This is the coolest thing ever. From experience, I can say that it was never good. It was a bolter with the assault rule, and you gave up carrying a close combat weapon for the privilege. Which never made sense to me because, as we all know from Modern Warfare 2, shotguns are a secondary weapon. For nostalgia's sake, I'm gonna go with the shotgun for my Marine. I glued on his arms, and then I made a little dent with my hobby knife so I can drill out the barrel. I never managed to get the hole dead center on my first try, so I found this little reamer Dremel bit really good for pulling the hole into the center of the barrel. There is some more Deathwatch specific tech that my Marine should have, including a backpack with a camera on it called the Auspicator Lens. This apparently lets them see even better. Looking through my bits collection, I still have a couple copies of this Deathwatch backpack. I shaved down the Primaris stump and glued on the backpack. Now for the shoulders and heads. It took me a bit of digging through my collection of old sprues to find one of these bad boys, the old Deathwatch upgrade frame. This has a bunch of Deathwatch shoulders and a couple of helmets. I stuck down my Deathwatch shoulders with a little bit of green stuff to bulk them out, and I stuck on a head. This is a Mark 7 head, although there is a debate on whether the Deathwatch wear their chapter plate painted black, or if they wear a unique Deathwatch Mark 8 errant armor. Probably a little bit of both. Now the other shoulder could be anything. This is where Battle Brothers display their parent chapter's shoulder pad. I could make my boy a Black Templar, or an Ultramarine, or a Blood Angel, but there is something extra Deathwatchy I could do. This bit comes from the Deathwatch Veterans box. It is a scarred up blank shoulder, and this represents a Black Shield. Black Shields are mysterious Space Marines who show up to a Deathwatch keep and ask to be inducted into the Watch. And they are always taken in, no questions asked. Are they renegades who have returned to the Emperor's Light? The last remaining member of an extinct chapter? A Space Marine who is exiled from his parent chapter for some horrid crime? The world may never know. Ooh, this little Deathwatch guy brings me back. The Deathwatch are very, very cool in the lore, and they actually have real life lore. They're kind of a controversial army. The Deathwatch are not a traditional Space Marine chapter. It's more an organization within the Space Marines. All Space Marine chapters send a tithe of Battle Brothers to serve in the Deathwatch, and these are fully fledged Battle Brothers who are just taking time off from their parent chapter to spend some weekends playing around as a Deathwatch. The Deathwatch hate all things Xenos, and they are specially trained and equipped to hunt out any alien and just annihilate them. They get access to a lot of different equipment and resources that are not available to the normal Space Marine chapters, such as the Deathwatch shotgun. And this is what really drew me into Space Marines, because I'd collected a Black Templar army at this point, but all of a sudden, there's new Space Marines that can be equipped with new interesting stuff. Equipping them with that stuff wasn't always good. I remember playing some games with the Deathwatch, and a fully kitted out Battle Brother was like 35 points, and it was absurd. They were not worth 35 points, but you buy a Space Marine for like 13 points, and then you give them a power sword, which is another 10, and then you give them a plasma gun, which is another 20, and it added up really, really quick. But the kind of mix and match have it your way style of the Deathwatch did really, really intrigue me. At one point, you could take 4 Terminators, all with Cyclone missile launchers, or all with heavy flamers, which was kinda rad. Games Workshop put a stop to that, but for a little bit of time, it was really, really cool. And therein lies the problem. Games Workshop has not always been good to the Deathwatch. They started out as their own faction, but then kind of quickly afterwards, things started to change. Primaris came out, and people were very, very nervous that the old style Marine Deathwatch were gonna go away, and it felt like they were going to, but then Games Workshop did come out with mixed squads of Primaris Deathwatch kill teams, which was pretty cool. You could take like all of the different Gravis units mixed up together. You could take all of the different jump pack units and mix them all together. I don't know if it was ever really that good, but it was really, really cool, and it gave Deathwatch players some real hope. Then at the launch of 10th edition, all of that kind of went out the window. They legendsed all of the different Primaris mix squads for Deathwatch, leaving them with their small number of core units and Deathwatch veterans, and they very much restricted the different loadouts and options you had available to those Deathwatch veterans, which was pretty annoying because people had already built their armies and glued the guns onto their boys, so having to swap those around all the time to keep up with these different changes was really, really annoying. And then the bomb went off and the Imperial Agents Codex came out. In that codex, there was a Deathwatch detachment, and all of the different Deathwatch units were rolled into that book. And so now it looked like the only way to play Deathwatch was to play Imperial Agents and then take some Deathwatch Space Marine units. Or you could just play a normal Space Marine chapter and ally in some Imperial Agents Deathwatch units. Not a full army anymore. Not really how it works, not how anybody was collecting Deathwatch. It was a problem. However, Games Workshop has since backtracked on this and dumped onto Warhammer community a full Deathwatch index. They brought it back from the dead with the old Primaris mix and match squads, and everything is kind of fine right now. They didn't bring back bikes, but other than that, everything is kind of back and everything is kind of working out. And I like to think that it was because the internet and the Warhammer 40,000 community made such a stink about Deathwatch going away that they decided to bring them back. I don't know if collecting a Deathwatch army is the smartest idea for longevity, but they're just so darn cool. It's hard to say no. My little Deathwatch vet needs a base, and I think trekking through an alien planet would be the perfect thing for an anti-Xenos Marine. I took a Cobalt Keep magnet base and prepared some Milliput. I stuck this down to the base with a little super glue and then pressed my mini's feet into the wet clay to make sure that there were some nice flat spots for his feet to go. Now that I have a little map of where not to put things, I can load it up with some bits. I grabbed some Alien Tentacle Epic basing bits and stuck these down into the clay. Once my Marine is done murdering the ambulatory aliens, he'll come back and stomp out these fleshy plants. Then I took some texture paste and threw this all over the Milliput, getting one nice coat everywhere and then using a wet paper towel to wipe it off of the base rim. I can paint this base up while it's still wet, but I can't glue my Marine down, so I'll paint them separately. I stuck my boy onto a paint handle and then gave both of them a black prime. Since I have them separate, it'll make painting a little bit easier anyway. I gave the alien base a coat of dark blue with a little bit of light blue sprayed onto the tentacles. Then for my Marine, the Deathwatch famously wear black armor, so obviously step 1 is bright silver. I took my scale 75 heavy metal and did 2 coats of this through the airbrush. This is a very bright and shiny metal that runs through the airbrush beautifully. Now to give it that black complexion. I took one of the Army Painter John Blanche colors, Turnbull Turquoise, which is a very dark phthalo green color, and put this over every bit of the armor on my Mini, except for the right arm, both shoulder pads, gun, and the backpack camera. With speed paint, I find it best to work quick so the paint has time to settle into the cracks and fall off the raised areas before it dries. Working quickly though, I did make a few mistakes where I got this color where I didn't want it, so I just took my original silver color on a brush and cleaned this up a little. Now, I'm not done with the speed paints yet. I took some Noble Skin, which is a black with some brown in it, put these over the metal bits. The black shield shoulder, his shotgun, his little light, and the mechanical gubbins on his face. Then for his Deathwatch shiny silver arm, I thinned this color down a lot and then put this over so it only shades the recesses. Continuing on this arm, I thinned down some Caribbean Ocean and glazed this over the shoulder so it's reflecting the blue of the sky and the ground of this alien world he's trekking through. With those speed paints applied, I did a dry brushing of my original silver color to keep his arm and bolt shotgun looking bright, and now it's finally time to start using some normal paints. I took a dark red color and base coated his knee, the armor of his shotgun, the wax of his purity seals, and his camera lenses and eyes. Then I took a bright red and started to highlight, making sure the top of his shoulder and the top of his gun areas are bright saturated red color. Why wear all black for stealth and then paint your equipment red? Because they're not dressed for tactics. They're dressing for the cool factor, and it doesn't get cooler than black and red. While I had this red out, I almost forgot to hit his regular Marine lenses with this red paint. It helps speed up the paint job a lot, where you can knock out all of one color in one go. And as long as you're going, why not go to EonsOfBattle.com? EonsOfBattle.com is packed with all sorts of hobby goodies, and our newest product is custom nameplates. These custom plates glue to the front of a Mini's base and can say whatever you want. It's a great way to give your Minis some extra razzle-dazzle. And EonsOfBattle.com is the best way to support us doing what we do with a membership. Each month, members get a credit that they can use on our new monthly terrain pack or any previous pack we have ever made. This September, we are revisiting our Blood Factory with the Dark Factorum Reborn. This is an epic collection of macabre modular walls that allow for building any shape and size of terrain, like L-shaped ruins and claustrophobic hallways. Within this set are the pulsating power plants, the engorged fluid pump, the digestive pools all capped off with the deafening screams of the breathing organ. These glistening contraptions blend brutal machinery with fleshy constructs, creating a disturbing manufacturing facility full of unsightly architecture. This terrain pack is fully compatible with our previous Dark Manufactorum and expands it sickeningly. Now that all the red is done, I can move on to another color, brown for his pockets. I took a leather brown color and base coated all of these bits, and then I took a brown speed paint and put this over the leather. The speed paint darkens the brown and made it really dark in the recesses, so now I can come back with my original color mixed with a little bit of white paint and edge highlight these pouches, using a stippling scratching motion. I also did some tiny little scratches. I always wonder how strong Space Marine leather is that they can use them without tearing them apart when they reach for their sidearms. While I had the brown out, I mixed it with a lot of white to get a creamy color, and I put this onto the paper of the purity seals. Then I took the same brown leather wash and I thinned it down as well. Once that was dry, I did some highlighting with my original color, and now another chunk of this Mini is completely done. On the tabletop, Deathwatch is kind of the most interesting way to run Space Marines because it's all the regular old Space Marines you know and love, just turned up to 11. Like, do you like regular old Intercessors, Bolter Space Marines? Well, can I interest you in a Fortis Kill Team, which is 4 Intercessors with much better bolters, 4 Hellblasters, and then 2 Desolation Marines, all taped together with +1 to hit and anti-infantry 2-up? Or maybe you like all aggressors all the time, don't even ask. Well, then an Indomitor kill team is for you. That is 4 heavy intercessors, 3 aggressors, and 3 eradicators, all taped together with +1 AP, +2 strength, and an extra 6 inches to their ranged weapons for absolutely no reason. Oh, I get really greedy looking at the Deathwatch index. I sold a 3,000 point Deathwatch army, but man, are those data sheets tempting. I have a lot of bits to make it happen, but I sold it. I sold my Deathwatch army. I don't want to start a new Deathwatch army, but I really do. I could have Terminators with 20 Stormbolter shots and then 6d6 Cyclone Missile Launcher shots on top of that, all with anti-infantry 2-up. They say the grass is always greener, but that's some pretty good looking grass. I don't know. Before I make any rash decisions, I gotta finish this little sucker. The arms of the old Deathwatch veteran kit have these Pit-Boy looking watches on their arms. I like to make the screens really glow, so I started out giving it a little puff of whiting from the airbrush. Then I hit it with some neon green over top of this. Then to protect these fragile layers of paint and to bring all the different paint finishes together, I gave the whole mini a varnish with some satin varnish. To finish him up, I dripped a little Ghillie-Doo speed paint into his screen, and then I took a little piece of foam with some silver paint and sponged this all over his black armor, like he's been beat up from his non-stop war with all the aliens and threats to the Imperium. Now, my black shield is done, I can finish off his base. I went back to my Caribbean Ocean speed paint and put this over all the ground for my alien ecosystem. And then some red beige speed paint over the tentacles to give them a disturbingly fleshy complexion. Then I hit the rim of the base with my favorite glossy black paint, Apple Barrel Gloss Black, and now the base is dry, I can finally attach my boy and see it all come together. My first Deathwatch veteran in years. The Deathwatch are such cool Space Marines, and it's so easy to make them look so good. I know this isn't black armor, but that dark, glittery armor looks so tactical, and the Deathwatch themselves are so tactical. And they have one of the coolest models in 40k, the Corvus Blackstar. Now, I know that might be a controversial take. The Corvus Blackstar doesn't look great in photos, but you hold one of those things in your hand, and immediately it becomes really cool. Like, you just immediately want to start playing with it. It's a really cool plane. It does kind of suck, though, that Deathwatch as an army seems like kind of a bad choice right now. Number one, it's a horrible value proposition. You basically have to collect an entire Space Marine army and then only put together half of it, cobbling together these weird kill teams. But the counter argument to that is, it's awesome. Will the Deathwatch be around for the long haul? I don't know. They started 10th edition in a little bit of a weird spot, a full army missing some of their classic data sheets, and then they weirdly got folded into another army, and now they're their own army again, minus Space Marine bikes, and now they're getting a new kill team that's gonna replace the Deathwatch veterans, and what's that gonna mean for people's collections? Deathwatch is a little bit of a mess right now, but it's a hot mess. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think of the mighty Deathwatch, and let me know what Space Marine chapter I should be taking a look at next. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to click the link in the description to get a cool Into the AM shirt today.